For many, he's remembered as the first Robin, the boy in bright colors beside the Dark Knight. But if you look closer, you'll find one of the richest, most emotionally complex evolutions in comic book history. This isn't just a story of a sidekick who becomes a hero. It's the story of a child forged in trauma, raised in silence, and reborn through pain, separation, and forgiveness into someone entirely his own. This is the psychology of Nightwing, not of becoming Batman, but escaping him. Welcome to Unmasked. Dick Grayson's story begins, like Bruce Wayne's, in the sharp sting of sudden loss. The Flying Graysons. One moment, defying gravity. The next, bodies on a cold circus floor. But where Bruce was left alone, Dick was taken in. Rescued, some might say, by a billionaire with a cave and a mission. But what does it mean to be saved? By someone who never healed. Bruce Wayne offers shelter, yes. Training, purpose. But emotionally, he offers something far more complicated. According to psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott, children raised in emotionally closed environments often develop what he called a false self, a persona constructed to meet the needs of the caregiver, while the true self remains hidden, unexpressed. In Bruce's care, Dick doesn't learn to grieve. He learns to compartmentalize. He adapts to Bruce's needs, becomes the perfect soldier, smiling when expected, tough when required. Robin isn't just a sidekick. He's a mask over another mask, and so the shadow begins to stretch. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process by which a person becomes psychologically whole, not an echo of their parents, but an integrated self, fully conscious, fully authentic. For Dick, this process demands something radical, separation, not out of rebellion, but out of necessity, because to stay in Batman's world is to stay incomplete. There are fights, heated words, a leaving that feels like betrayal, to Bruce at least. But to Dick, it's salvation, and then, from the ashes of Robin, something new emerges. Nightwing, not a name given, a name chosen. In that moment, Dick Grayson becomes the rarest of things in comic book mythology. A character who doesn't just change costumes, he completes a psychological metamorphosis. The boy who wore another man's grief like armor now wears his own truth like wings. But leaving the Batcave doesn't mean leaving the pain. The fall of his parents still echoes. The guilt of surviving still lingers. Yet, unlike Bruce, Dick doesn't seal those wounds behind walls. He opens them. He feels them. He shares them. This is what psychologists, Tedeschi and Calhoun, call post-traumatic growth. The ability not just to recover from tragedy, but to evolve because of it. Dick doesn't become a hero out of vengeance. He becomes one out of empathy. He sees the worst in the world and still chooses to believe in the best. That's why he leads the Titans. That's why he forgives Bruce. That's why, when faced with darkness, he doesn't retreat. He invites the light in. Every generation inherits more than genetics. We inherit pain, expectations, scripts. Bruce inherited stoicism from his father, coldness from Alfred's wartime discipline, control from trauma itself. And without meaning to, he passed those things on to Dick. But Dick doesn't pass them forward. Instead, we see him with Damien, with Jason, with the Titans. He listens. He mentors with warmth. He apologizes when he's wrong. Psychologists call this intergenerational healing, breaking the cycle by choosing differently. Batman taught him justice. But Nightwing? Nightwing teaches love, trust, repair. He doesn't destroy the legacy. He rewrites it. Nightwing is more than just the first Robin, more than Batman Light. He's the embodiment of psychological integration. He holds the acrobat, the orphan, the warrior, the brother, the son, all of them, together, in balance. He doesn't hide behind a symbol. He becomes one, not by rejecting emotion, but by fully feeling it, not by copying Batman, but by completing what Batman started. Nightwing teaches us that strength isn't silence, that wholeness isn't found in vengeance, but in forgiveness, in choice, in becoming who you are, not who you were trained to be. And in a world full of shadows, he chooses to fly. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the mind of Nightwing. If you found something meaningful here about grief, growth, or what it means to be your own person, consider subscribing. Because sometimes, to understand a hero, you have to look beyond the mask.